When I did the most hated trucks, I talked about the GMC Crackerbox, and a whole lot of you came down to the comments to tell me that the truck on your screen was not a Crackerbox. You were right. So we're going to fix that today. You're going to see a real one, and we're going to do it properly. Because here's the thing about cabovers that I don't think gets said enough. They didn't disappear because they were bad. They disappeared because a law changed. For about 30 years, if you hauled freight in this country, the length of your tractor came out of the length of your trailer. Every foot of nose you had was a foot of freight you didn't. So America built trucks with no nose at all, and men sat on top of the front axle, with the engine between their knees and made a living. Then Washington changed the rule, and within about 10 years the flat nose was gone. These are the 10 greatest of them. Counting down. Number 10, White Freightliner. And this is where it starts. In 1929, a man named Leland James founded a freight company in Portland, Oregon called Consolidated Freightways. He was hauling for a living. He couldn't buy a truck that did what he wanted, so he started building his own. In 1951, he signed a deal with the White Motor Company to sell them, and they went out the door badged White Freightliner. And in 1954, the flat nose arrived. That shape went on to dictate what an American cabover looked like for the next 40 years. Aluminum, light, short, built by a man who hauled freight, for men who hauled freight. And here's a detail I like. The first Freightliner ever sold to an outside customer is in the Smithsonian. Not a museum for trucks, the Smithsonian. Number 9, the GMC Crackerbox. And this one is for the comment section. Built from 1959 to 1968. Why Crackerbox? Because it looked exactly like the square metal tins that saltine crackers came in back then. Somebody said it once at a truck stop and it stuck for 60 years, which tells you everything about how names work in this business. Now here's what people forget. It wasn't a joke truck. The cab was aluminum, the whole thing tilted, and the cab was 48 inches long, 4 feet. That's the entire cab. You could order one on a wheelbase as short as 108 inches, and if you wanted a sleeper, the sleeper was 24 inches deep, 2 feet. That's your bed, your closet, and your home. You could get a Detroit 671 in it. So you had a 2-stroke Detroit screaming underneath you in a 4-foot aluminum box. They stopped in '68. What replaced it was a lot more civilized and a lot less interesting. Quick pause. If you like the road stories behind these machines, my ebook Every Mile Was Yours collects them in one place. It's the first link in the description. Now number 8, the Freightliner Powerliner. And this one is on the list precisely because it failed. 1973. The horsepower war is on. Freightliner builds the Powerliner, a cabover designed around the biggest engines anybody was making, and it sold badly. A few disappointing years, and it was gone. So why is it on a greatest list? Because somebody at that factory said out loud, what if we build the most truck we possibly can and see who shows up? That's a real thing to do, and it hardly ever happens now. The ones that survive are worth serious money to the men who collect them. Failure ages well. Ask anybody with a Powerliner in a shed. Number 7. The White Road Commander, built from 1972 to 1983. And in '75, the Road Commander 2 arrived, with that split wraparound windshield everybody remembers. The cab was all aluminum and it tilted hydraulically, which meant you could get it an engine or swap one without a fight. By 1977, you could order it anywhere from 190 horsepower up to 450. Cummins, Caterpillar, whatever you wanted. And then in 1980, Volvo bought White. If you watched my video on the brands America lost, you know how that story ends. The truck kept going a while under other names. The badge on the nose kept changing, and the company that built it stopped existing. Good truck, wrong decade. Number 6, the Mack F model, 1962 to 1981. 19 years. The standard cab was a 50-inch day cab, and you could go up from there to 72 or 86 inches with the bustle back on it. And you could get almost any engine that mattered. Mack's own Maxodyne and Thermodyne. Cummins, including the Formula 350 Big Cam. Detroit 71 Series. Caterpillar. But the reason drivers remember the F model isn't the spec sheet. It's that it was a Mack, and it was flat-nosed, and it sounded like a Mack. And if you came up through the Northeast in the 70s, you saw them every single day of your working life. Some trucks are famous. This one was just always there. Number 5, the GMC Astro 95 and the Chevrolet Titan 90. 2 trucks and 1 truck at the same time. GMC built the Astro 95 from 1969 to 1987. Chevrolet sold the same truck as the Titan 90 from 1970 to 1980. Diesel only, no gas option, which for General Motors at that point was a statement. Detroit 671 to start, then the 8 V71, Cummins N Series, a 12V71 for a stretch in the 70s, the Cummins KT450, and the Caterpillar 3406 from 77. That is a serious list of engines. Whatever you think of General Motors in a truck, they were not messing about here. But look at those dates again. Chevrolet was out of heavy trucks by 81. In 86, General Motors handed the whole heavy truck business to Volvo, and Volvo took 85% of it. The Astro was never replaced. It just stopped. Number 4, the International Transtar. The Cabover started in 1965, got the Transtar name in 68, and in 1974 the Transtar 2 arrived. Production ran to 1981. Wider cab, rounder edges, and that big trapezoid grille you can spot a half-mile off. And the engine list on the Transtar 2 is something else. International's own turbocharged V8, the Detroit 8 V92, the Caterpillar 3406, and the Cummins KT450, which was 1,150 cubic inches of engine. There was even a Super Transtar, with a Detroit V12 in it. I said on the hated list that International lost its way later on, and I meant it. This is the other end of that same company. Same badge, completely different result. Number 3, the Peterbilt 352, 1959 to 1981. At the time, the longest production run of any Peterbilt. Aluminium cab so it stayed light and it didn't rot. And a cab that tilted a full 90 degrees, which, if you've ever tried to work on an engine in a hurry, is the difference between a bad afternoon and a fine one. In 69, it got a name instead of a number, the Pacemaker, with a wider cab. And in 75, they raised the whole cab 4 inches to fit the bigger diesels underneath. One owner-operator described his 72 as somewhat primitive, and then in the same breath said they were very tough trucks, and that it rode better than the Freightliners did at the time. That's about the most honest review a truck can get. Number 2, the Peterbilt 362. The last one standing, announced in 1981, and built all the way to 2005. Think about that. The law that killed cabovers landed in 82, and Peterbilt kept building this one for more than 20 years after. You could order 6 different cab lengths, from 54 inches up to 110. And the reason it finally ended wasn't that nobody wanted one, it was emission standards. The rules moved again, and a truck that had already outlived its whole category finally ran out of road, 24 years, for a design everybody had written off before it started. The 362 is the argument that cabovers never actually stopped being good. And number 1, there was never really a question. The Kenworth K100 Aerodyne. The K100 arrived in 1961, the same year as the W900. Same company, same year. 2 trucks that both ended up legends. But the moment that puts it at number 1 is 1976, the Aerodyne. The first factory-built sleeper with 7 feet of standing headroom. 7 feet. You could stand up in your truck. If you'd spent 15 years crawling into a 24-inch box behind the seat, that wasn't a feature. That was a different life. In 1977, a K100 hauled the Space Shuttle Enterprise. In 79, it was the truck in BJ and the Bear. And every kid in America knew what it was. Kenworth kept the K100E going in North America until 2002. 41 years. I put the K100 at number 3 on my toughest trucks list, behind 2 conventionals. On this list, there's nothing above it. Both of those are true. So what happened? 1982, the Surface Transportation Assistance Act. Before that, the states capped the length of the whole rig, usually somewhere around 50 to 65 feet, tractor and trailer together. That is the entire reason the Cabover existed. Every inch you saved on the nose was an inch of paying freight. The 82 Act changed the question. It made the states allow a 48-foot trailer, and it took away the limit on the overall length of the combination. And in that one sentence, the Cabover lost its only real argument, because nobody ever preferred sitting on the front axle. Nobody enjoyed tilting a whole cab to check an oil level, or feeling every expansion joint through the seat of their pants, or knowing exactly where they'd be in a bad one. The moment the nose was free, America went back to the long hood and never looked back. But I'll tell you what didn't happen. Nobody ever forgot them. So tell me 2 things. Did you drive one, and which one? And be specific, because I'll know. And then the honest question. Given the choice today, same money, same freight, would you take a Cabover back? I know what I'd say. I want to hear what you'd say first. If stories like these old Cabovers still get you talking, subscribe to the channel and ride along for the next one. I'm Dale. Keep the shiny side up, and I'll see you down the road.